This is a special report from ABC News Digital.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ty Hernandez in New York with this ABC News Digital special report. We're about to learn more about the deadly shooting spree at the Washington Navy Yard last week that killed 12 people. Here's the FBI and their briefing.
Activity over the past 10 days. Our investigators and analysts have gained a greater understanding of the recent movements and activities of deceased shooter Aaron Alexis. As is already known, Alexis was employed as a contractor for a private information technology firm. Pursuant to his employment, he was assigned to a project at the Washington Navy Yard, and he arrived in the Washington, D.C. area on August 25th. During his stay in this area, Alexis resided at local hotels and began working at the Washington Navy Yard on September 9th. On Saturday, September 14th, Alexis purchased a Remington 870 shotgun and ammunition at a gun shop in Northern Virginia. On the same day, Alexis also purchased a hacksaw, among other items, at a home improvement store in Northern Virginia. On the morning of Monday, September 16th, Alexis arrived at the Washington Navy Yard and entered a parking garage at 7:53 a.m. in his rental car. As we advised last week, he had legitimate access to the Navy Yard as a result of his work as a contractor, and he utilized a valid pass to gain entry to Building 197 at 8:08 a.m. Shortly after his arrival in the building, and over the course of approximately 1 hour, Alexis shot and killed 12 victims and wounded 4 surviving victims before he was shot and killed by law enforcement officers. Investigation to date has determined that Alexis acted alone. Today we will be releasing excerpts from surveillance video and still images that depict Alexis entering the Navy Yard and Building 197, and also show him walking in the hallway and in a stairwell while carrying the shotgun he used to commit the shootings. We will also release photographs of certain pieces of evidence, specifically his car that was located in the parking garage at the Navy Yard, his backpack that was left in the bathroom in Building 197, and the shotgun. During the course of the shootings, Alexis gained access to a Beretta pistol that he also then utilized. Both weapons were recovered at the scene and have been submitted to the FBI laboratory for forensic analysis. We will not be releasing any further information on the sequence of the shootings or his movements around the building at this time, as our evidence response teams remain at the scene as they complete their forensic work and efforts continue on ballistic and video analysis. We can say that the Remington 870 shotgun had been altered with a sawed-off barrel and stock. Purple duct tape covered the end of the stock, and handwritten etchings were present on various parts of the shotgun. Etched into the barrel of the shotgun were the words, quote, "End to the torment," close quote. Etched into the right side of the shotgun receiver were the words, quote, "Not what y'all say," close quote. And etched into the left side of the receiver were the phrases, quote, "Better off this way," close quote, and quote, "My elf weapon," close quote. Analysis of the electronic media recovered from Alexis's belongings revealed several relevant communications. While analysis of these communications is ongoing, preliminary analysis has yielded clues to Alexis's intentions and issues of importance to him. There are indicators that Alexis was prepared to die during the attack and that he accepted death as the inevitable consequence of his actions. There is no indication to date that Alexis was targeting specific individuals. There have been widespread reports and speculation surrounding Alexis's mental health history and reported behaviors indicative of severe mental illness. As we seek to better understand his pathway to violence, we will continue to explore his background and motivations, including his clinical history. At this point, I can confirm that there are multiple indicators that Alexis held a delusional belief that he was being controlled or influenced by extremely low frequency, or ELF, electromagnetic waves. The etching of, quote, "my elf weapon," close quote, on the left side of the receiver of the Remington 870 shotgun is believed to reference these electromagnetic waves. In addition, a document retrieved from the electronic media stated, quote, "ultra-low frequency attack is what I've been subject to for the last 3 months. And to be perfectly honest, that is what has driven me to this," close quote. ELF technology was a legitimate program for naval, subtonal, submarine communications. However, conspiracy theories exist which misinterpret its application as the weaponization of remote neural frequencies for government monitoring and manipulation of unsuspecting citizens. The information and images we are releasing today will be available via the internet at fbi.gov/Washington Navy Yard. Absent any unexpected developments in the coming weeks, this will be the last press briefing in regard to this case. Along with our law enforcement partners who stand beside me today, we again express our sincere condolences to the victims and families of the Navy Yard shootings. We remain committed to supporting them during this difficult time and to doing everything we can to understand the motivations behind this horrible tragedy in order to better detect and disrupt potential future active shooters. I will now invite SAC Mike Monroe of NCIS to say a few words. Thank you.
Good afternoon. First and foremost, on behalf of NCIS and the extended Navy family, we offer our sincerest condolences to the families of the victims affected by this horrific crime. To those injured, we offer our heartfelt support for a full recovery. NCIS special agents and professional staff from 6 field offices in our headquarters have been working alongside our law enforcement counterparts to clarify the circumstances surrounding this incident. NCIS special agents immediately responded when notified of the shooting in Building 197. We have 3 special agents assigned to provide procurement fraud, investigation, and counterintelligence support to the Naval Sea Systems Command, or NAVSEA. Our agents have offices in Building 197 and report there every day. Other NCIS Washington Field Office special agents also visit the building every week to support the command. On 16 September, one of the NCIS special agents assigned to NAVSEA entered Building 197 within 5 minutes of the first shots being reported. 8 additional special agents followed soon thereafter. 2 special agents engaged the shooter and returned fire in 2 different areas of the building. These agents were teamed with responders from other law enforcement agencies. 2 of the NCIS responders were teamed with a Metropolitan Police officer when the 3 were fired upon by the shooter. They returned fire and pulled the MPD officer to cover after he was shot. An NCIS special agent subsequently carried the wounded officer down 3 flights of stairs and outside to paramedics. Other agents pulled wounded personnel to cover, provided first aid, and assisted in the safe escort of NAVSEA personnel from the building. NCIS has worked with the FBI in the forensic processing of the crime scene. We have also partnered with FBI and MPD in conducting numerous interviews, obtaining records, and conducting analysis of all data collected. This has been an exceptional, collaborative, interagency effort. NCIS, in partnership with the FBI Washington Field Office, will continue to work with the victims in an effort to answer as many questions as possible. NCIS continues to work closely with NAVC and Important Navy Command to help them resume operational activity. This support includes securing classified information, retrieving time-sensitive documents, and returning personal effects to employees. This tragedy has hit home for the Department of the Navy. NCIS is resolved to continue assisting all those impacted by this tragic event. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Once again, I first want to express our heartfelt condolences to the families and their victims. The emotional scars of this tragedy will not soon be forgotten, and we are all truly heartbroken for your loss. Since last week, our office, the U.S. Attorney's Office for D.C., has been involved in trying to obtain search warrants and help with other legal process so that investigators can get a fuller picture of what motivated Mr. Alexis and how he carried out this crime. We've also had victim witness advocates from our office working with the victims of this tragedy to try to provide them with emotional and psychological counseling so that they can move forward with lives that we all understand will never be the same again. As the Assistant Director explained, what we know so far is that it appears that Mr. Alexis, in a scenario that we've seen far too often, quite frankly, was a mentally unstable individual, and he was able to obtain a firearm 2 days before he carried out an attack that was planned to kill as many innocent civilians as possible. Over the last week, the primary role, as I said, of the U.S. Attorney's Office has been to help investigators understand how this crime took place. To that end, we have obtained search warrants for Mr. Alexis's hotel room where he was staying since September 7th, since he arrived in D.C. His vehicle, 2013 Toyota Prius that was parked outside the crime scene. To search various electronic media that were associated with Mr. Alexis that were found both within Building 197 and within his hotel room, and to help obtain data for phone numbers and other electronic media associated with Mr. Alexis. The warrants, we filed a motion this morning to unseal the affidavits for the warrants, so those are going to be available to all of you if you don't have them already. Those materials, Bill Miller is here and he can pass out some of those materials and you can get them electronically to see the affidavits for the search warrants that were obtained. As you have seen, as it's been explained, the search warrants have been critical in helping us understand the motivations of Mr. Alexis and what caused this attack. Going forward, we're going to continue to assist our partners in running down every lead to try to answer every question until we complete our review. For our part, we promise to honor the memories of those victims by doing as thorough and comprehensive an investigation as possible to try to understand what motivated this attack and hopefully try to prevent this from ever occurring again in our community. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Carl Vasilko. I'm the Special Agent in charge for the ATF Washington Field Division. I want to briefly comment on ATF's role in the investigation, and it's important that we comment additionally on the overall cooperation that existed amongst the investigative team. During the ATF's initial response to the shooting on the 16th, we activated all the special agents within the Washington Field Division and our Special Response Team number 2 from Northern Virginia. We participated very actively in the initial clearing of the building when it was still an active shooter situation, and while we were attempting to determine that there were no second or third shooters. As the investigation quickly turned from the active shooter situation to the investigative phase, we blended our ATF agents in with those others there from the investigative team. It's important to comment on the level of cooperation that existed between the entire team, and I want to mention specifically between ATF and the FBI. That cooperation, the level was outstanding and it was seamless. And I want to make a special point to dispel any indication that it was anything other than that. ATF expresses our sincere condolences to the victims and the families of the Navy Yard shootings. And it's most important that they know the law enforcement cooperation between all the agencies involved in this investigation was seamless and outstanding. I'm proud of the ATF personnel and our special response team for their rapid response to assist in helping to stop continuing violence and our role in the investigative team. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Teresa Chambers, the Chief of the United States Park Police. And as you've heard from others about the cooperative effort, we wish we didn't have to be here today. We wish that the incident hadn't happened. But I think it is important to wrap up comments by talking about the role of every first responder. You know by now that a United States Park Police officer teamed with a Metropolitan Police officer engaged the suspect the final time and ended the carnage. You've seen the pictures of the heroic acts of the helicopter, the aviation unit, and the Park Police plucking injured and others off of the roof. But they weren't the only first responders. As we looked at the sobering video of people from other cubicles, of officers that work in the Navy Yard in a police capacity, of agents, every one of those people entered the building and ran toward danger, knowing that they themselves may be injured or killed. This is a unique area in the Washington, D.C. region. And if there's any positive that comes out of it, is that the region should take comfort that we model this teamwork, starting from the first line officers to the investigations and the investigators that happen afterwards. In my 37 years of policing, I've never seen a better example of heroic action or a better example of cooperative law enforcement teamwork. And I am proud to stand with my colleagues here today to bring you this update. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take just a few questions.
Did he call anyone?
Yep.
Did he call anyone?
I can't hear.
When you said the word communication, when you're looking at the things you got to search for, did he ever email anyone? Did he post on social media? Did he tell anyone in his family these things that he was saying?
So the question was, did any of the electronic communication we found, was that relayed to other friends or family members? As far as I know at this point, that was not done.
Were all these electronic communications that you talked about, were they simply documents, or were there videos or pictures or anything beyond? You mentioned a document. Was there anything beyond a document? Did he record it?
The electronic media that I referred to was multiple documents.
Any reason to believe any of the people were shot by friendly fire?
It'll take a long time for our laboratory to complete ballistics. We have no information to indicate that any of the victims were killed by friendly fire.
Before this happened, did he talk to anyone? Did he email anyone? And if so, what did he say?
So the question was, did he talk to anybody or email anyone prior to the shootings to indicate that this was coming? And the answer is no.
Assistant Director, was there any evidence that he's the one that pulled the fire alarm that day? And is there any evidence that people heard him laughing while he was shooting?
So the question was, do we have any indication that he was the one that pulled the fire alarm that day, or did anybody hear him laughing? who pulled the fire alarm as part of our ongoing investigation. I don't have the answer for that at this time. I haven't heard any of the victim statements indicate that he was laughing while he was doing it.
As you attempt to figure out why this happened, can anyone speak to where the system broke down? We know that he was in communication with police up in Newport, Rhode Island, and there are questions about whether that information got passed along in an appropriate manner. Where's the system break down?
So the question is where the system broke down, and I know from different reports that I've read that he had various encounters with law enforcement across the country, various encounters with doctors as well. I can't comment on exactly where it may have broken down.
Can you talk about correspondence that he had, or did he have information, letters, so forth in a book bag? And can you elaborate a little bit more about what was in the book bag?
So the question was, where were the letters? And the letters that we refer to, the communication we refer to, were contained on electronic media that were found in the book bag.
Has the FBI found any problems with the background check by USIS? And if so, what were they?
So the question was around the background check for USIS. So while that's relevant to our investigation, it's not clearly within our lane, and I'll have to defer to the appropriate authorities to answer that question.
You said that he would target any people in the workplace. Could you discuss some of the issues that he was having in the workplace, what you found about that?
Sure. So the question was around encounters or issues that he may have had in the workplace. So as part of our investigation, we have interviewed coworkers and managers involved in the project that Alexis was working on. We have learned that there was a routine performance-related issue addressed with Alexis on the Friday before the shooting, but there is no indication that this caused any sort of reaction from him. We have not determined there to be any previous relationship between Alexis and any of the victims. There is no evidence or information at this point that indicates he targeted anyone he worked for or worked with. We do not see any one event as triggering his attack, and we believe that his victims were random as he walked through the hallways and stairwells of Building 197. As referenced, we have found relevant communications on his electronic media which reference his delusional belief that he was being controlled or influenced by extremely low frequency electromagnetic waves for the past 3 months.
So 3 months, is there any indication, is it your belief then that this was a rapidly accelerating problem? 3 months from, this doesn't go back a year, that something happened, and this was just a rapidly accelerating delusion, mental illness, whatever you want to call it?
So the question was around his mental illness and around how rapidly that progressed. I'm not a mental health professional, and I really don't care to comment on that.
Mr. Director, in your investigation, did any of his co-workers or his employers indicate that they saw signs of mental illness?
So that's as much comment as I'm going to give reference his mental illness.
We're going to give 2 more questions, please.
Yep.
Can you go back, you just said electronic media. Can you be any more specific? Was it a laptop that he had, or a phone, or what was it?
It was various electronic media, so all those things, a phone, a laptop, thumb drives.
Can you say now, you said it went on for about an hour. Would you describe this as kind of a wicked game of hide and seek that he was playing inside that building?
So the question was around the hour-long, basically tactical potential engagement with the subject. I think you would have to be inside the building to fully appreciate its size and all the places that Alexis could have been hiding. It was, I think the Chief Lanier described it really as a tactical nightmare for the first responders. And I think if you could see the layout and the different potential for places for him to hide, it is a nightmare.
Where was he finally shot?
Thank you.
Can you tell us?
So, yeah, the final question is where was he finally shot? And he was shot by law enforcement officers on the 3rd floor of the building.
But where in the 3rd floor, could you say?
So, like I said, it was a very big building, and I can't say with any specificity right now exactly where he was shot on the 3rd floor.
What was the actual time?
That's it. Thank you very much for all your time.
Thank you so much.
You've been watching an FBI briefing into the Naval Yard shooting. And officials have also released surveillance video today. We're going to be joined by ABC's Louis Martinez, who's been following this story. He's with us now from the Pentagon. Louis, as we're talking, we see the surveillance video just released by the FBI, some of it very chilling because it's so clear, showing Alexis walking into the building, unleashing his firearm, and looking for people. Why the decision to release this video?
Well, Ty, we knew this video existed. We know it's part of the investigation, and it's very relevant because it goes to the fact that the evidence shows that this was a totally random event. Obviously, he planned this very well because he snuck the weapon in. This was a sawed-off shotgun that he had that he rearmed in the bathroom. I think there's even still imagery that shows the bag that he carried it in, and then the video that just shows him skulking methodically in these hallways. There's one video where you see him going around the corner, peering into an office, basically looking to see if there's anyone in there. In another video image, you see down the end of the hall, you see people who are either trying to get away or that he's trying to sneak up on. So this is very relevant video that goes to what actually happened that day. Also, a lot of questions, obviously, about how he was able to get that weapon in there past security. There's a whole narrative that you see in this video right now. You see him actually, in one of the still images, his car goes through the security gate. In the video, picks it up his Prius, going into the garage across from the building where he conducted the shootings. You see him walking into the building. You see him kind of working the weapon together, kind of getting it into place, and then walking around methodically over the third and fourth floors.
One thing they say this video doesn't show, and they have no evidence of, this is after speaking with many of his colleagues and people who were on site during that terrible rampage, that he wasn't specifically targeting anyone.
Right. It sounds so random. Obviously, he left behind some messages that indicated that he was under some mental torment. He talked about being influenced by the electromagnetic radiation, these extremely low frequencies. But you get the sense, I mean, investigators are telling us right now that they can't find any relationship between the people that he shot, that these were not his co-workers, not in the area that he worked. Basically, he was hunting for people, as FBI Director Comey said last week. So this is just shows you what a random event of violence this truly was.
This wasn't exactly a conclusion to the investigation. I think they mentioned this would be the last of the FBI briefings about it. But they seem to come to one very important determination here, that he was delusional and that he believed he was being controlled by these frequencies. So tell us a little bit about the evidence that they talked about today that lends itself to this conclusion.
Well, they say that in the bag in which he brought the weapon into the building, they found some electronic media. They're not very specific as to whether that is a laptop or some other device, but they said that on that electronic media, he left behind messages where he basically said that he had been under the influence of these extremely low frequencies, and that he'd been subject to this for 3 months, and that he said, to be perfectly honest, this is what has led me to this. Then, of course, the etchings on the barrel of the rifle, as well as the etchings on the butt of the rifle. It's extremely interesting. The one on the, he says this ELF weapon, again, ELF, and a reference to extremely low frequency. Not what you say, also etched on the butt of the weapon. And then on the barrel itself, you know, where the bullet comes out, you see he scratched in there, "End to the torment." So obviously a very troubled individual. You'd heard the FBI special agent say there that she can't get into the specific mental capacity or stress that he was under because she's not a psychiatrist. But you can see that there was some deterioration over the 3-month span that he himself admitted to in this writing in electronic media.
Interesting. They talked about, and we've heard about these stories of people who witnessed what appear to be breakdowns from him, but the timeline is very short. I mean, he bought this weapon just days before the attack.
Just days before the attack. I mean, remember this was on a Monday, starting off the work week, and apparently that weekend is when he purchased this weapon, this shotgun, and then he went to a home supply store and bought a hacksaw so that he could hacksaw the end of the barrel there as well as the butt of the rifle. So it's a lot of planning involved in this on his part. And remember that a lot of this has to do with his access to the base And that has been the real question over the last week here at the Pentagon is how was he able to keep his national security clearance so that he could get that job as a computer IT guy, as a subcontractor, and then that job enables him to get the badge, which gives him access to the base.
Surprising in this day and age that he didn't have to go through a metal detector. Clearly he brought that weapon right inside the property. What about security changes? Everyone's back at work at this point at the naval base. What have we seen in terms of changes there?
Well, I'm told that security levels are pretty much back to normal. However, there are some categories that have been boosted. Obviously, they don't want to get into details about that. When I spoke to the Navy, they didn't want to provide those details. But there is a slight boost in security, but otherwise it's at the level alpha that it was when the attack took place. One thing, Ty, you mentioned metal detectors. I've got to tell you that it's very. That was a question that was raised by reporters here to senior officials, and they told us basically, listen, this is a trust system where when you get a clearance and you get your badge, we don't expect this to happen. And if you were to go in an ideal world through security everywhere, as you would, let's say, if you wanted security detectors or metal detectors at a mall or into a theater, you could see the kinds of delays that would occur there. So again, they explain that for practicality's sake, that's why that doesn't happen. In certain buildings like this, you know, the people that actually go through metal detectors are not the employees with the badges, it's the visitors. In this case, he, as they said, had the badge that gained him access to the base, just like any other employee at that base.
Yeah, and now we have the chilling video that shows exactly the steps he took and how he very easily walked into that base. ABC's Louis Martinez, thank you so much for joining us from the Pentagon and helping us break down that FBI briefing on the naval base shooting in Washington. I'm Ty Hernandez. You've been watching an ABC News Digital Special Report. Thank you for watching.
This has been a special report from ABC News Digital.